I recorded this 24 hours after the Director of Public Prosecutions entered a nolle prosecute case against Mr. Cohen's widow and another. They had been charged with his death. The court ordered that there be a public inquest on his death. So between the time when the Director of Public Prosecution entered a nolle prosecute and the time when I'm talking, I cannot be charged with commenting on an active case. The case is not active. This Cohen's murder is almost like a political assassination, but it is not a political assassination because Cohen was not politically active or those around him, but those who killed him used the same tactics with political assassination, and I think I am an expert in political assassination. I will come to the reason why he was killed and all those things. Whom do I suspect most? I suspect the SSU to have been behind his death. His death was so much calculated for a political assassination, which I said this one looks like a political assassination. There is usually a background check. Everything is checked and everything is done. For example, background check came and discovered that the Sarah was siphoning money to construct her own. They were having marital problems. Anytime they can differ. You remember the Ouko case? They tried to sell a story that Ouko had a shadow cabinet, but Christabella said she knew of Ouko's shadow cabinet and such things. So usually they look for a story and then they come up and they say Sarah had marital problems with the man, they were about to divorce. Sarah had started constructing things in her home area secretly without him, and actually he even knew. You remember there was a time when Cohen even went to the construction site, took pictures on it. These are people who are in the system who knew about it and they had planned to kill him, and they had even tipped him that Sarah was constructing a house, and he had even gone there too. That is creating a scene where once he dies, then fingers will be pointed at Sarah. Sarah is a typical. There is a tape that I recorded yesterday where I talked negatively about Luos. Now I hope I will also talk negatively about Kikuyus. Sarah has that typical Kikuyu lady symptoms. She made sure that she got married to Cohen. So any lack of his in his death, she has to get in the Kenyan law. They say that a widow, even if he wrote assuming that his will is genuine and he did not include her, in law a widow is taken care of through the lifetime. You don't need to write the will into your spouse's name. What happens is that whatever you left should take care of her well-being for the rest of her life. So there is a lifetime commitment to the widow in case she's not guilty of killing her husband. Sarah went to an extent that she made sure, you see, by this man being the stepfather to Sarah's daughter, which gave the daughter some right to his property after he died. It also is that she went ahead to cement that by making sure that he adopts the daughter. You see, an adopted child, a legally adopted child, is a child who is treated the same as a biological kid. So she was making sure that if in any case, if she doesn't inherit him or anything, then the daughter inherits him as, but that is purely, for a lack of a better word, we can say that is purely Kikuyurism or monetarization. But I do not see Sarah going ahead killing him because of that. I do not see. I'm only seeing her making sure that should he die, because he was not young, and she saw him dying soon of age or other, but not homicide. So she made sure that when he dies, things happen that way. And then I'll say why the SSU. There are some people in the government who knew that Cohen had dark history, and that is why they wanted to get his money. And I would not be shocked that even by the time he died, they had already grabbed that. And they had grabbed a lot of his things from him before he died. I will want to say here that Cohen's sister may have used the Dutch laws, but she did not know about the Kenyan laws. Because if I would have met her before, you see, here she says that before even the will was read, she came out and said her brother had said that the will be ABCD. And truly to nature, exactly how she had described is how the will came to be. So in the Kenyan law, that will, the will that a beneficiary is aware of beforehand is null and void. So we go to this point of why did the SS do that. One thing, the worst director of investigation we have ever had is Mr. Kinoti. He liked press conferences. He liked. I also like press conferences. Yeah, I do. But let me tell you a secret about press conferences. Go there with a good heart. Go there with a good aim, and go and tell things as you'd know. Exaggerating or such a thing, it will be counterproductive. I want to refer to a question that he was asked by Ken Mijungu of the NTV at the time when Cohen's body was found in a septic tank. Ken Mijungu of NTV, if I can remember the tape well, because I have a photographic mind, had asked him that looking at the septic tank, there was signs that recently some cementing had been done. How comes that from the time when the cementing was done up to the time the body was discovered, how comes that they did not discover the body to have been there? And there was even evidence that when the DCI had evicted Sarah from the compound, the body and took control of the whole house, the body was brought in after they had secured the place. When Ken Mijungu asked Mr. Kinoti that, Mr. Kinoti said did not dispute the fact that the body was brought in after this the cementing was done, when the body was there and the person who was doing the cementing didn't notice the body. He did not dispute the fact that the body was brought in after the DCI had secured the place. He only said two things. One, that he cannot comment on active investigations. Two, he said that when the whole compound was secured, even Sarah Cohen's people were there to make sure that nothing can come in and go out. Well, Sarah's people may have been there, but they may have been compromised, that the body was brought in when the CID or the Kenya police was around. Now I want to turn to why some government agents must have known about Mr. Cohen's dark past, and they were trying to extort money from him and even killed him. You see, any tension that happens during such a time, a person takes advantage of it. And how did this one come in? Mr. Cohen worked for Philips. Philips, they produce bulbs, and I think, if I'm not wrong, they also produce radios and TVs. He used to work for those people, and he was a Dutch citizen. In some countries, when you are a citizen of that country and you commit a crime in anywhere else in the world, if it can be proven in that country's court, then you are convicted as if you committed the crime in that country. In Kenya, if you just walk 2 steps out of the Kenyan border and you slap somebody, that person cannot take you to any police station in Kenya. But in some countries, when you commit a crime any crime outside the jurisdiction of that court, the country can still... A very good example is Kofi Olomide. Kofi Olomide was in Nairobi. He slapped one of his dancers at the airport in Nairobi. But when they went to Kinshasa, he was found guilty of assault and was jailed in the Kinshasa jail. So Dutch countries, if you conduct yourself doing magendo, and you see the Philips company used to do a lot of magendos with the government. Cohen did a lot of magendos with the government and acquired a lot of money. He could not take that money to his home country. He could not. Because if he takes it to his home country, it will be treated as proceeds from a crime. So what did he do? He invested in Kenya. And when he invested in Kenya, senior government officials used to go there for hush-hush money. We will disclose you, we'll do what, and they would pay them. He complained to people who were around him on how he was spending a lot of money bribing. And somebody told him to marry a local lady. A local lady, preferably a Kikuyu. Because if he were to marry, say, a Luo lady, things would not work the way he envisioned. I'm sorry if I'm annoying people by profiling tribes, but a Luo lady is submissive and leaves the husband to do everything, all the economic and financial transactions without involving her. But a Kikuyu lady would be involved in each and everything. So that if he would have married a Luo lady, these government officials would still come and harass him. But marrying a Kikuyu lady, she would make noise, she would give them a hard time. So a decision was made that Cohen marries a Kikuyu lady before deciding which Kikuyu lady to marry. After deciding that he was to marry a Kikuyu lady, the next decision was the nearest Kikuyu lady who was there, and that is his secretary. Some say she was his receptionist, and some say she was his secretary. To a person like me, I do not know the difference between a receptionist and a secretary. So that is why they got married. And their marriage was not out of love, it was out of convenience. This is a lady who wanted to make money, and this is a gentleman who wanted to keep money. But then there was a third force, and that third force was the one. And then this CID, you see the case of Kemei, Sergeant Kemei. This man's interference and emotional and whatever. Because in CID training school, the most the basic CID course was called course number E. In course number E, we were taught at CID training school that when you are investigating something, even the DCIO who has sent you to go and investigate that case, treat him as a suspect. Actually, you were even told that there were only 3 people you could not suspect when you were investigating the case. The first person you would not suspect would be God, the creator. The second person you would not suspect would be the head of state, because by then, even now, the head of state cannot commit crimes. And the third person is you, the investigator. So this thing about Mr. Kinoti rushing to the scene and then coming, theorizing. Again, lastly, when you are investigating, don't come up with a fixed mind. Come out with an open mind. Just say anything could have happened. The person can have killed himself, the person can have been killed by somebody else, and then the other person wants it to be seen as if he killed him. And come with an open mind. But then the problem with Mr. Kinoti was every time there was a death or something, he would rush there, call a press conference, come up with a theory, then tell the investigators that this is how the case is, and that is why Gishomo even disowned him. Any death is a painful death, even a death where, like Cohen, who had conned everybody, who had conned his company billions of shillings. I can assure you, nobody will ever be convicted of his death. Or if somebody will be convicted, the killer may be found and be convicted, but the person who sent the killer, I can assure you, we will only know it on the judgment day, because it is said that on judgment day, everything will be exposed and we will now know who organized that and that. And so we wait for that. But for the killers, it is possible that the killer may be found, but the person who sent the killer may never be known. Rest in peace, Mr. Cohen.